If you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now, along with the bell icon so you can be notified whenever a new video is posted. And if you are already subscribed, check and make sure that YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you. Seems every week I get a few people telling me that they were unsubscribed without their permission. And of course, be sure to give the video a like, as well as share it on your social media. The white supremacists hate that. Now, that said, we inch closer and closer to the day of judgment, and the left arm of white supremacy is trying to shore up its half of the con game against us. Never forget that both the Republicans and the Democrats are working against us, both ends against the middle. You have no friends, especially not when it comes to electoral politics here in the haven of white supremacy. And the thing to remember is years ago, about 20 years ago, there was a book that was written, a nonfiction book called The Informant. It was about the Archer Daniels Midland lysine scandal. Lysine happens to be an additive put in feed that ADM was selling to farmers. Lysine is a nutrient that helps to make the animals healthier, which of course means that if you're a cattle rancher, you can get more money for them. Well, what happened was you had a number of the agribusiness companies that dealt in selling feed. What they were doing was they were fixing the market. You would have companies from the US, Japan, and Europe, basically the G8, who would get together in swanky hotel suites, and they would decide how the market would be divided up. That way, there would be no competition. Everybody has their turf, and the people inside that turf have no one to go to, so you can just charge them whatever the hell you want. And that's what they would do. They would get together and bicker about, well, this is going to be your turf, this is going to be ours. That's what they were doing. Eventually, one of the individuals who was involved, for his own reasons, decided to blow the whistle, and that's what formed the basis for the book The Informant, which was turned into a mediocre comedy movie with Matt Damon. It wasn't supposed to be a comedy at all. The book was published shortly after the movie The Insider with Al Pacino and Russell Crowe was made, and it was basically trying to farm from that exact same territory because The Insider was based on an article. I think it was either Vanity Fair or New York Magazine. They called it The Man Who Knew Too Much. The Insider was about the tobacco industry and how they were deliberately trying to get people hooked on all that. But the point that I'm trying to make is when it came to the lysine scandal that ADM got caught up in, one of the secret recordings that was made of these corporations that were helping to each other to fix the market, they were always repeating to one another, remember, it's us against the customers. The customers are the enemy, and the rival corporations are our friends. This is what these guys were saying to each other. Now, you understand that, as Noam Chomsky put it, government is the shadow cast by business. And if businesses get together and say, hey, it's those rubes out there who think that there's competition, they're the ones who we're all getting over on if we put our heads together. If that's what business is doing, then what makes you think that this duopoly, calling itself an electoral system, calling itself a democracy, operates any differently? The Republicans and Democrats are both playing out of the same playbook for the same master, a white supremacist master. And we are the main ones who they're operating against. See, it's not just a matter of, we're not operating in the interest of the rank and file citizen. They specifically are targeting us. We form the foundation for this racialist pyramid. And if black folks get to their feet, the whole damn thing comes crashing down. So priority one is to make sure that white supremacy stands at all costs. Now, this year, black empowerment has come to the fore. You see, the entire country has been forced to take notice, and they're desperately hoping to find a workaround. The left arm of white supremacy is trying to reassert something resembling control of the former slaves, but at the end of the day, now we've made it where the issue is going to be about our tangibles and punishing the police, two things that white supremacy cannot afford to do. They can't even afford to breach the subject. So what they've decided is we're just going to keep doing the same thing, just more of it. And hopefully, if we carpet bomb these people with enough propaganda, hopefully some of them will go soft-headed and start getting mushy-brained about it. And they'll begin to peel off. And hopefully this whole thing, this whole black empowerment thing is going to blow over, and hopefully it withers on the vine. And that's where Kamala Harris comes in. Now, Joe Biden was born in Pennsylvania. He likes to brag about how he's from Scranton, Pennsylvania, the Rust Belt. That's meant to appeal to all of those casual racist, read white moderates. But the thing is, Donald Trump barely carried Pennsylvania 4 years ago. He narrowly won the state by only a couple of percentage points. He understands that since Joe Biden is from Pennsylvania, which is one of the main reasons why the Democrats wanted him on the ticket, one of those big swing states, they need Pennsylvania. So that being the case, put Joe Biden on there. But when you look at the latest polling, you would think that Joe Biden would be running the boards. I mean, Pennsylvania is his home state. He's spent the last 40 years, and the last 12 in particular, reminding everyone of that. And yet, when you look at Pennsylvania now, you see that there's only a handful of votes when you take the average of the polls. Biden's only up by a handful of votes. That's practically the margin of error, folks. Now, Joe Biden, he's supposed to be up by 20 or 30 points. He ought to have Pennsylvania in a walk. It should be an absolute no-brainer. I mean, Pennsylvania ought to be a slam dunk. It shouldn't even be a question. And yet, Joe Biden, not only is he polling poorly there, he has to actually go there and stump in Pennsylvania and tell them, hey, don't forget, where am I from again? Anybody remember? Where am I from? Joe Biden, when he can remember that he's supposed to be running for president now, he also has to help other people to remember that he's from Pennsylvania. And he's taken Kamala Harris with him, but it seems that appealing to those casual racist voters seem to be already spoken for, so he's brought Kamala Harris with him. And her job is supposed to be to help galvanize the black vote. But of course, galvanize simply means to lure out, because she's not showing up bringing any tangibles. And nobody is running on a platform of how they're going to punish the thugs with badges. Nobody's running on a platform of this is what black people are going to get put in their hands and put in their bank accounts. Nobody's running on a policy platform of that. It's basically, we feel your pain and we know what it's like to experience systemic racism. Well, at least Kamala Harris claims to, even though she spent the last 30 years helping white supremacy to inflict that systemic racism on black people in California. And Joe Biden helped to write the laws that enabled her to do so. Well, if anyone ought to be experts on systemic racism, it should be Jim Crow Joe and Cop Mala Harris. God knows they've done enough to promote it. But Kamala Harris is there because Joe Biden clearly is realizing that the casual racist vote just ain't going for him. If they have a choice between a light water racist and an honest in-your-face racist, well, those casual racist read white moderates are already trending toward Trump in Pennsylvania. I guess the old saying is true that Pennsylvania is Pittsburgh in the east, Philadelphia in the west, and Alabama in between. So he's dragging Kamala Harris, hoping that she can get black folks to turn out for him. A few days ago, I was telling you about how the Washington Post, in what can only be called a typical example of trying to paint your own reality, posted an op-ed saying that Joe Biden's not doing as poorly as people think. The claims of him doing poorly, especially with black voters, is highly overrated. No, it's not. If it was, then Joe Biden, he wouldn't even be wasting time in Pennsylvania. He would have all of those casual racist voters that the Washington Post was claiming that he's doing so well with. They were bragging about how, well, people thought that after the 2016 election that the Democrats were going to be trying to shore up their support with the black base. Well, they haven't done that. They're going for white moderates instead, and that seems to be working. Yeah, that's why Joe Biden's in Pennsylvania. That's why he's in Pennsylvania, his home state. because all of those casual racists cannot wait to turn out to vote for him. And that's why he brought Cop Mala with him and said, you got to find a way to get some of those niggers to turn out to vote. You're trying to get her to bridge the gap for him because those casual racist voters just can't wait to push the button or pull the lever for Joe Biden. They can't wait to. You see, the white media, just like they did with Bloomberg, they'll go ahead and say that, oh, this left wing or left of center racist, they're doing just fine. Black folks don't have a problem with them at all, and certainly white voters don't. Oh, what, them worry? Everything's doing just great. And then as soon as you look and see what actually happens, when you take a look, you see, nah, they're not doing well at all. But the thing to remember is, this is the long game that the white media is playing. Regardless of the outcome of the 2020 election, they've got to find a way to adjust that trend because the black vote's making it clear. You're not getting the black vote anymore without bending the knee and saying you're going to be coming with our tangibles and to punish those who have been attacking us, whether they carry a badge or not. If you're not doing that, you ain't getting the black vote. They got to turn that around. Black people cannot make it a habit to be demanding things for their vote. Why, black people are supposed to be running like a bunch of scared little darkies. Oh, we can't let that orange man have 4 more years. Oh, it's just too dangerous. Stakes are too high. We can't be sitting this out. Why? What are you going to get for your vote? It makes no sense to be turning out to vote unless you know what the hell you're going to get. And if the only thing that you're going to get is, well, at least Joe Biden's a polite racist. You know, he's not going to do anything for you, but he's a polite racist. He's not a rude racist like Donald Trump. That's a distinction without a difference. And it is a politically unsophisticated and politically immature people who think that way and act on that. We do not act based on fear. We act based on what's in our interests. And if neither candidate is bringing anything that promotes our interests, then we would be a bunch of damn fools going, let's vote for one anyway. Neither one of them has pledged to do anything for black people. So my question is, you go ahead and call yourself being an idiot, voting for Cop Mala and Jim Crow Joe. What the hell are you expecting them to do? Joe Biden has already declared that once he becomes president, there's going to be more money given to the police. Yeah, because the cops haven't killed enough black people yet. Joe Biden's already told you he's going to give the police more money. That's to incentivize them. It's to reward them. It's to let them know, as president, I'm going to be putting a bounty on black people's heads. I'm going to make sure that any of these states who call themselves trying to defund you, I'm going to make sure that the feds take up the slack. And because of the fact that the federal government controls the money printing, what that means is basically they can put it on the nation's credit card. States can't do that, but the federal government can. So that's what Joe Biden's making it clear. Hey, that national debt's going to go up a lot, and it's going to be make sure the thugs with badges don't miss any paychecks. That's basically what he's going to be doing. So again, what the hell are you voting for? Well, Donald Trump scares me. That's because you're a coward. Donald Trump is no better and no worse than any of the other 44 clowns before him. The only difference is Donald Trump is too much of an ignoramus to be using code words. Donald Trump, as far as he's concerned, anything that gets him attention is good, so he figures, what the hell, I might as well shock some people. Do I like Trump? Not at all. There's nothing to like about the guy. He's a liar, a racist, a fraud. He's an idiot, a coward, a moron. The guy ain't got the sense that God gave a rutabaga. But the thing is, with Trump, you can't hide your head in the sand and pretend as if he's something he's not. You can't decide that the situation's not as bad as we've been telling you it is. And that's what a lot of black folks are scared of. With Donald Trump in there, they can't deny the reality anymore. And they want somebody who will let them hit the snooze button. They're looking for some way to go back to goofing off. Jim Crow Joe and Kamala Harris are clearly nothing more than slightly sanitized versions of Donald Trump. They bring the exact same anti-black racism with them, the exact same contempt for black people, but the difference is both Kamala and Jim Crow Joe have between the both of them, 80 years combined public disservice record of attacking black people through the legislature and through the courts. That's what both of those two have. They have a rock-solid track record of using their position in the courtrooms and in the Congress in order to attack black people full-time. Even Donald Trump didn't have it that good. So again, what the hell are you voting for? It's an idiot who goes, I gotta vote anyway. No, you vote when your interests are being promoted. You vote when there is an opportunity to promote your interests. There's nothing that's going to happen, even incidentally, with a Kamala Harris-Joe Biden administration that's going to benefit black people. All that's going to happen is Kamala Harris is going to turbocharge her efforts to make sure that Indians and Asians and immigrants and such are going to get whatever it is that they want, full legalization, green cards for everyone, and it's going to be told, well, this is benefiting everyone. It's going to be benefiting everyone. That's what she's going to be doing. And because you got some black folks, some of these bootlegs, some of these sorority fraternity hacks, some of these clowns who are desperately hoping that they can climb the white left of center political ladder if they get out here and sell the soap, they'll be out there cheerleading for what they know to be a pack of lies, but the rest of us are not going to be getting anything other than white supremacy dialed back in. And black folks trying to hit the snooze button because they're looking at the situation and scared they're going to have to actually do something about it. Leave Trump exactly where he is, because as long as he's there, you see the ugly reality and you can't deny it. You can't sit there and pretend that, oh, Eric Holder's going to do something. Loretta Lynch is going to do something. Barack Obama's going to do something. Oh, they did for 8 years. Barack Obama signed Blue Lives Matters executive orders, and he invited racist cops to the White House so that they could have a beer with them. And Eric Holder told you there was nothing that he could do when it came to all of these white supremacists in law enforcement. He didn't even mention it, didn't even talk about it. And Loretta Lynch told you there was nothing she could do about George Zimmerman, nothing she could do about Darren Wilson, nothing she could do about Timothy Loman and the rest of the murderers of black people across this country. There was nothing they could do about Sandra Bland, nothing they could do about any of it. That's what they told you for 8 years, emboldening the thugs with badges, and then you pretend to be catching the vapors because Bill Barr honestly sits in front of the camera and tells you, Jacob Blake, he was reaching for a weapon. He was armed and dangerous. Is he lying? Of course he's lying. But the thing about it is, you don't like the fact that he's not going to be courteous enough to make a pretense of an investigation. See, that was the game that Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch and Barack Obama played with you. And Kamala Harris, oh, well, the investigation could take several months. In other words, we're letting this blow over. We want this to blow over and hopefully move on either to the next scandal or something else, but we don't want for you to have a visceral reaction when we tell you, nope, just the latest in a non-stop string of incidents of black people being murdered with impunity, and we're not doing anything about this one either. The investigation was nothing more than stalling for time so they could go ahead and drop that little announcement by dead of night. Because they've been getting away with it for the longest time. They felt like it was working, but what they were really doing was piling more and more weight onto the back of a camel, and this straw broke the camel's back, and now they're looking and trying to figure out how do we get around this one. But Bill Barr's doubling down. He's telling you to your face, I'm not even going to pretend that there's an investigation going on with the Jacob Blake attempted murder. I'm not even going to pretend that there's an investigation. I'm telling you I'm on the side of the thugs with badges. That's what Bill Barr's done. Now, my question to you is, if you feel like Bill Barr should not be heading up the Justice Department, you think that there's something wrong with him, you're right. But my question is, what did Joe Biden do for the 8 years that Barack Obama was sitting on his hands? Did he say so much as a peep? Has he said anything on the campaign trail? How about Kamala Harris? She said anything about Matrice Richardson yet? All of those numerous white supremacist gangs in the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. And these are the same bastards who arrested Matrice Richardson. And they were the last ones to see her alive, but they claim that they don't know what happened to her. She just turned up dead. And Kamala Harris not once but twice said, I side with the racist Sheriff's Department. If you're indignant about Bill Barr, and you should be, my question is, why the world is it that you're not looking at Jim Crow Joe and Kamala Harris and going, whoa, you guys got to answer some questions about what the hell y'all been doing the last 12 years? Because the exact same scrutiny needs to be applied to them. Otherwise, all that's going to happen is you're going to be complicit in telling black folks that we're going to put Jim Crow Joe and Kamala Harris in the White House and something's going to happen. We don't know what, but hopefully something will happen. Family, hope is not a strategy. And when you apply hope to circumstances that are clearly adverse to you, that's called delusion. Now you're trying to live in a dream world, and that don't work. So no, as much as I can't stand the Orange Man and the rest of his henchmen, the truth of the matter is we're finally actually having some movement on these political issues because people are having to see the ugly reality. But there are some black folks so desperate to go back to Xbox or go back to Netflix, or they're so desperate to try to turn over and ignore all of that. They want anything that will give them the ability to say, oh, now we can go back to goofing off full time because Jim Crow Joe and Kamala Harris are on the job. Yeah, Biden was also on the job for the 8 years of the Obama administration. How'd that turn out? And speaking of turnout, you got the black bootlicks who are supposed to be part of the quote-unquote celebrity class. These clowns have put their meatheads together and they're launching yet another damn to fail effort to see if they can get black women to turn out to vote. They don't say black women explicitly, but when you look at who's headlining this so-called National Black Voter Day, the BET, which by the way is owned by Viacom, Black Entertainment Television ain't even owned by black people, but they're the ones who are behind this National Black Voter Day. So a white corporation using a so-called black dummy front media, this media front. This is the reason why it's a good thing that the old black media died. It's a good thing that we killed it. Because this is who the hell they work for, sock puppet organizations. So Viacom, using their old dead black media puppet BET, they're launching a National Black Voter Day. And who's supposed to be headlining this thing? It's supposed to be a series of public service announcements. Though whose service that they're working for is obvious. It ain't black folks. Stacey Abrams. Can anyone think of anything that Stacey Abrams has done for black people? Me neither. Soledad O'Brien, just like Kamala Harris, Soledad O'Brien, she can't decide if she wants to be a black woman, if she wants to be Scottish, if she wants to be Latino. She can't decide what it is, so she says she wants to be all of it. And I'm like, well, in that case, then, since you can't figure out which one you want to be, go sit over there. We don't need any more mixed up people. And, of course, they brought out, I suppose this is supposed to be Beyonce's mother, Tina Knowles. This is who's headlining this thing, so it's obvious who this is really about. This is yet another in their damn to fail efforts to try to figure out if they can turn out the black female vote, except they want it to be a little bit tactful about it. This time they're not going to be saying black women, but that's okay. When you look at the lineup, when you look at who's behind it, who they put out front for it, it's obvious who this is really about. Now, when you read the article from the Hollywood Reporter, and this is exactly where it belongs because this is nothing more than entertainment. It's nothing more. It's infotainment. It's propaganda. But when you look at it, it's supposed to be starting tomorrow. And there's going to be all these PSAs supposed to be posted online. And you look at who it is who's behind this. MTV, VH1, Comedy Central. That makes sense. This is a joke. And they've partnered with The Root. Because we all know that The Root has been nothing but a non-stop beacon of black empowerment. I mean, these guys, they haven't been in the tank for the left arm of white supremacy. They haven't been acting against our interests, have they? You also got Entertainment Tonight. You got Bounce, Black Enterprise. For God's sake, Black Enterprise, whose magazine is now down to basically the thickness of a pamphlet. And they wasted so many years leading the charge to make it very clear that the black community is led by its women. It's a matriarchy, and black men, well, we're not focusing on black men. Black men are just not that important. And they're bringing out the stars, though I don't know who any of these people are. Janika Gibbs, I guess it is. Then you got some actor named Mignon, Rhapsody. You got the National Urban League CEO Mark Morial. You know him, the failed mayor of a failed city, New Orleans. And speaking of failures, you got Blavity Inc. Blavity. Look at this lineup here. The Root, Bounce, Black Enterprise, Blavity. It's like a freaking rogues gallery of every old, dead black media bootlick you ever heard of. Everyone who's been fighting against the efforts of black empowerment. Everyone who have been shameless apologists for the left arm of white supremacy. Everyone who's been trying to get us focused on who's beefing in the world of hip hop. Trying to get us focused on which video harlot is running around wearing butt floss. And the Real Housewives of Who Gives a Damn. Oh, they tell you everything about sports, but nothing about black empowerment. That's who it is that BET has got for their little lineup. That's who they've partnered with. These organizations who dedicate themselves to trying to distract and mislead you and me. This is supposed to be headlining this National Black Voter Day. And what exactly are you trying to get all these black folks together to vote for? Reminds me of that movie Primary Colors with John Travolta back in the 90s. You had this young campaign aide, an African American, by the way, one of the few movies that actually dared to do something like that. And after he was on the campaign trail with this analog for Bill Clinton, played by John Travolta, in the end, he gets so disgusted with the process and all the dirty dealings and all the muck that he had to rake for this guy. And he gets so sick of it. In the end, he says, you know what? I'm quitting. I'm not going to quit trying to change things in the system, but I'm going to quit working for you. And finally, John Travolta asks him, well, what is it that you're going to do? And the guy goes, I don't know, something clean. Maybe I'll have a voter registration drive. To which John Travolta asks him, and after you've gotten everybody registered to vote, who are they going to vote for? You see, that's the problem with these National Black Voter Day nonsense that you got BET out here doing. It reminds me of that song by Righteous Black Gorillas, Another Pig Bites the Dust. The revolution has come. It's time to pick up the gun. But before we pick up the guns, we need to know what we're fighting for. And that's a particularly salient point that those brothers made, because I think it was Otto von Bismarck who said that warfare is the continuation of politics by alternative means. And the U.S. has certainly got a pointed lesson in that principle this summer, haven't they? And that being the case, to put those two ideas together, before we go calling ourselves voting for anyone, don't you think we ought to know what we're voting for? Oh, election day has come. It's time to pick up the ballot. But before we pick up the ballots, we need to know what we're voting for. I need to know I'm going to get my tangibles. I'm not doing this just because you're playing the game of, oh, there's this mean, rude white supremacist over here, and he shouldn't be in the White House. Now, should he? Well, you're right. He's not doing anything for me. What are you going to do? You think I'm going to do something that only benefits black people? No. I just want you to get that orange man out of the White House, and I'll be in there, and then you won't have somebody being rude to you. I don't give a damn about Donald Trump's words. He's not doing anything for me, and apparently neither are you. That's a distinction without a difference. What the hell am I voting for then? I can just turn off the television or not pay attention to the internet, and Donald Trump's rude mouth goes away. Although the anti-black actions don't go away, but then again, the same thing goes with the Democrats. I need to know what the hell I'm voting for, not what I'm voting against. And that's the problem here. You better understand what's going on. Now, even though clearly this is an effort meant to turn out the black female vote, it does show that the incompetent operative class among the black bootlicks, they know that basically they got to change their rhetoric. That's the reason why Mark Morial, the failed mayor of New Orleans, who, by the way, I believe his father back in the 70s was the first black mayor that New Orleans had. But unlike the first black mayor of Atlanta, Maynard Jackson, Mark Morial's father didn't do a dang thing for New Orleans. These fools, all they cared about was they were some light-skinned Negroes who thought that they were finally going to be invited to the right cheese and croissant parties. That's what Mark Morial and his family were about. So he went from doing nothing in New Orleans to working for a professional do-nothing organization, the National Urban League. And Morial said, in the current climate of uncertainty and unrest, it's important to make a plan for voting, particularly for black voters. Okay, so I guess it seems that the time for trying to call themselves psychologically masturbating black women, that train seems to have derailed. They realize they're not going to get any mileage out of that. They're saying black voters because as far as they're concerned, hopefully, if they don't specify black women, that's going to fool anyone. But then again, when you're making it where the face of your little shindig is going to be 2.5 black women, because when you put Stacey Abrams, Tina Knowles, and Soledad O'Brien together, that's what you get. You basically get about 2.5 black women is what you're getting. So you're going to make sure that they're the face of this little thing. It's obvious who it is you're trying to woo and it won't work. And thinking that you're going to sanitize your language a little bit, okay, we'll back off of the overt gender warring language and maybe this will slip under the radar, but it won't. Efforts to suppress the black vote are coming from all sides, Mark Morial said, whether it's restrictive state voting laws or foreign-based misinformation campaigns. Mark, I understand that as mayor of New Orleans, you spend a lot of time sheltered, and when you weren't goofing off or finding skirts to chase or wasting taxpayer dollars or finding inventive places to put it close to your heart or wallet, I know that you've been out of touch with the black community your entire life, and you really haven't wanted to be in touch with the black community, so it makes sense to me that you don't know what's happening in the black street. You have contempt for the black street. But that doesn't change the fact that you can go ahead and try to call the black media foreign-based or misinformation or anything else you want. And you know what else you better call us? You better also call us effective. Because the thing is, you don't represent the black street. The black media does. You're the one who's foreign-based. Because you don't work for the black street. You don't work for the black agenda. You don't work for black empowerment. You don't work for the black community. You work for white supremacy. You work for the left arm of white supremacy. You work for the entrenched white supremacist interests who have oppressed us for 500 years. You're the one who's foreign-based. We're homegrown, 100%. You're the one who's been leading a misinformation campaign telling us to vote for somebody who ain't going to do a damn thing for us. Trying to trick us into believing that if the orange man leaves the White House, somehow that's going to be a win for us if we haven't been promised anything. Donald Trump getting voted out would only be a win for us if our interests are actually going to be promoted. Joe Biden has been absolutely silent about tangibles, though he hasn't been silent about defunding the police. He says he's going to up the police's funding, so we know where he stands on that. He backs the badge. Well, in that case, then let the cops put him in the White House then, since he seems to think that it's much more important that he stay on the good side of the police unions than that he stay on the good side of the black community and the right side of history. Fine then. Let's see if there's enough thugs with badges to put him into the White House. That's who he's depending on for the votes? Good. Let the police put him in the White House, since he's going to put all of his chips on blue. And as for Kamala Harris, she's already told black folks what she's going to do for black people. Nothing. She's already told us if we can expect anything from her, and her answer was a quick no. It is a lie. It ain't even misinformation. It's a flat out lie to be telling black folks to vote for two doggone scumbags who have spent the better part of a combined 80 years fighting against our interests and trying to lock black people up and persecuting us every chance they got. No, Mark Morial, you and that phalanx of rogues and trash that you like to pal around with, that you're going to be hanging out with tomorrow, you're the ones who are leading a misinformation campaign. The black media is leading the truth. And that's the problem that you have with that. And at the end of the piece, they go ahead and give another list of organizations that are supposed to be partnering with this little trick out the vote effort. The NAACP, Color of Change, National Action Network, the NBA, and PepsiCo. This is a joke. Black folks don't own the NBA. Black people do not own Pepsi. Black people do not control the NAACP. The NAACP is nothing more than a freaking social club, not that it's been much more than that. Color of Change? Color me confused. And the National Action Network. This is a collection of white corporations, white front groups pretending to be black, like the NAACP, and a bunch of do-nothing organizations like Color of Change and National Action Network. This is supposed to be who's going to be turning out the black vote, and they can't understand why it is that their boy Joe is hemorrhaging support. Because the thing to remember about all of these black folks with all of these organizations, white front group or not, they make their daily bread off of proving that they can be useful to whatever corner of the white supremacist political machine that they happen to occupy. That's the entire point for all these guys. Al Sharpton's got his little show on MSNBC, and before that he would be in front of the cameras, and that helps to make him prominent. That helps to make him prominent, and you can always, if you got enough skill and enough savvy, you can always parlay that into a little bit of coin for yourself. And if you write a book, well, they'll be sure to make sure you get mentioned there. Oh, you can monetize television time if you got the right connections. But the thing is, all of these guys, they all are dependent to some degree or another on the left arm of white supremacy to prop them up, just like Candace Owens and these other clowns on the right are dependent on the right arm of white supremacy to give them a couple of shekels. But we got to make it very clear, we're not falling for any of this garbage. None of this stuff is going to trick us. None of this is going to work. The standard is not whether or not you can get some prominent person, some prominent Negro who the white media put on the television screen for a few minutes to endorse this or that. That's not going to be what turns out the black vote. You can get out there with all the scare talk you want. As Stokely Carmichael, a.k.a. Kwame Ture, said, all the scared niggas are dead. So that's what they don't understand. They're hitting the panic button. They're hitting the fear button. They're hitting the terror button, but it's not working. Black people are not running around like a bunch of scared chickens with their heads cut off, just in a panic. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Oh, we got to do something. Oh, that mean orange man. He's certainly nothing that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have done compares to this guy. They certainly can't be any worse than him. We're supposed to be so scared that we don't think. Because when you're not thinking, you're also not asserting your interests. You're not asserting yourself. Scared people do not assert themselves. They run, they cower, they back down, but they don't assert themselves. This is the time for us to be bold. This is the time for us to make it very clear. We're digging in our heels. We meant what we said. No tangibles, no vote, no kidding. This is the time for us to show people something that we have not shown in over a century and a half, and that is consistency. This is an effort that's supposed to be geared to undermine what we're doing. They're throwing the kitchen sink. When they bring out all of these has-beens and never-will-be's, they're bringing out a whole bunch of folks like, what the hell are you bringing out Tina Knowles for? Well, I guess Beyonce's on tour or something. What are you bringing out Stacey Abrams for? I mean, what's Stacey Abrams going to do? And Soledad O'Brien, does she even have a TV show anymore? I think not. This is less than useless. They would have been better off doing nothing at all as opposed to doing this, because this is nothing more than a naked show of contempt. The only thing that they need to be doing is talking about our tangibles, talking about punishing the police, and holding Jim Crow Joe and Kamala Harris's feet to the fire and making it clear, no funding for the police. Joe Biden cannot be allowed to hand the thugs with badges a financial lifeline. He cannot be allowed to do that. Because what will happen is you have these Negroes out here. He'll go ahead and sign some executive order, or he'll get the Democrats to put forward some legislation to do that. And amazing, the Democrats and Republicans can't agree on anything. But if Joe Biden says we need $500 million more dollars for the police, so he can go ahead and kill some more black people, You'll find the Democrats go for it and the Republicans do it too. So all of a sudden you'll have a bipartisan support for some legislation. And they'll call that unity. Yeah, unified against us. But how is Joe Biden saying that he wants to give $300 billion or $300 million, however much it was, to the police? How is that any different than Donald Trump saying that he wants to do it? What's the difference? I'm waiting for someone to tell me the freaking difference. Because the difference is you don't have to support either one of them. And it matters whether or not you do, because everybody understands when you have fully 13% of the population, 1 out of every 7 people in a country who have made it very clear, we are pursuing political change outside the ballot box. That is a threat to the system. Everybody understands exactly what that is. The United States certainly understands it. The U.S. has certainly pulled this trick in enough countries. The U.S. understands full well what happens when you encourage a population to abandon the ballot box. Because in every society that's supposed to be civilized, the entire idea behind having a vote is so that you can have issues settled and you can have disputes settled and you can have issues taken care of and concluded without any sort of fighting, without any sort of unpleasantries. If there's a dispute or a difference of opinion on policy that is supposed to be enjoined on the group, then you put it to a vote. And everyone agrees that whatever the outcome of the vote is, we will all abide by it. Even if we don't agree with it, we agree that this is how we settle things. This is how we deal with our issues. What we certainly don't do is we don't do anything unpleasant. We don't do anything radical. And the idea is to get black folks to go along with this con. So what black people are making it very clear is, nah, we've gone ahead and resorted to the ballot enough times. We've had people who have promised us legislation, and even if the legislation gets put on the books, nobody enforces it. So the words are just dead text on a page. So what the hell are we voting for? No, maybe it's time to try something else. And as we've seen the last few months, it's gotten their attention. You didn't need an election to get New York to get its mind right about punishing the thugs with badges. Or racist white women who call the police on black people. You didn't need an election to do that. You got that done without cop Kamala Harris in the White House. You got it done without Jim Crow Joe Biden in the Oval Office. So what does that tell you? I'm trying to get you to think and not be acting from a place of fear, because black people are real good for that. Black people have been practicing the scared darky routine for so long. For a lot of us, it's just a knee-jerk reaction. It's second nature. We just go to that. We just have that as a reflex. We go from goofing off to scared stiff in 0.5 seconds flat. So no, we're not doing that anymore. Nobody's scaring us. Nobody's coming up with the usual scare tactics. Donald Trump wants 4 more years, let him have them. Until my tangibles and punishing my enemies are going to be state policy, I don't see what the hell the difference is. And I'm not moving based on Jim Crow Joe Biden saying, I feel your pain. No, Joe, you are the one who inflicted the pain on us. So we're here to politically return the favor. This is a dangerous trend that the black media is setting in motion. And the problem happens to be this cannot last forever as far as white supremacy deciding that it's going to keep taking these L's. We're throwing the political system out of balance. And all of those people who thought that they were going to get their turn again at the helm of the political machine, because that's what the duopoly is about. You got a duopoly, it guarantees that 50% of the time you're going to be top dog. Law of averages kicks in and pretty much maintains equilibrium that way. But what we're doing is we're throwing the equilibrium off. We're knocking the balance off. Very difficult to pretend as if you have a democracy when there's clearly no political choice, or at least there's one party rule. Very difficult to pretend you have a democracy under those circumstances. Now, if Donald Trump is supposed to be this big bad threat to America, if Donald Trump is really all these things that these leftists and their black bootleg mouthpieces say that he is, then it ought to be an easy choice to say, hey, we got to cut that $20 trillion check and we got to punish the police. If you have a choice between protecting the police and perpetuating the existence of the United States, if you got to choose between the two, it ought to be a no-brainer. But for white supremacy, it is a no-brainer. just not the way that a rational person would think. Far as they're concerned, if they have to choose between sticking up for the thugs with badges or seeing the United States of America cease to exist as a geopolitical entity, they've looked and already made up their minds. Well, America, you were good while you lasted. Goodbye. They've already made up their minds. And you know what? So have we. This is a battle of resolve. And for the Negroes who are hoping that this is all going to be tidied up just in time for them to get around to the holiday shopping season, you're in the wrong damn room if that's the way you think. This is the new normal. See, that's the whole point that a lot of black folks don't like. What they're hoping for is that there's going to be a finish line where they can go ahead and say, woohoo, now we can go back to goofing off full time. No, this is the new normal. And if you are not prepared to fight for your interest and for those of your progeny, then you are also not prepared to survive. We have to be unapologetic about that. We got to be in black people's faces about that. We accept too many excuses from black people. Let black people talk their way out of doing the hard work that power demands. That's one thing the white supremacists understood. One of the worst white supremacists was speaking strictly in terms of power when he said, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. What he actually meant was the price of power. And the first power was to keep black people under white supremacist control. You want to keep these niggers under control, that's going to require eternal vigilance. You got to always keep an eye on these niggers. You can't slack off. Always got to be watching them. And if any of them out there saying the wrong thing, you better be on top of it. You better make sure that you keep them economically deprived. You got to do it constantly all the time. You got to do it through the banks. Got to do it through the government. Got to do it through social organizations. You got to send interlopers and double agents among them to confuse their internal politics and tell them to resort to a political system that ain't produced a damn thing for them, or to tell them that these white supremacists over here are your friends. But you never notice that these white supremacists who these black bootlicks want you to vote for, they're best buddies with the very white supremacists on the right who they tell you to be afraid of. Donald Trump was a loyal Democrat supporter long before he decided that the GOP was going to be his red carpet to the White House. Joe Biden was mentored by a bunch of white supremacist segregationists. And as for Kamala Harris, never forget that Kamala Harris was mentored by low-down Willie Brown. And that's important because Willie Brown has as many allies in California politics among the Republicans as he does among the Democrats. And he is as well regarded by the Republicans in California as he is by Democrats. Keep in mind, California used to be a red state. See, a lot of folks forget about that. California used to be a red state. It didn't actually become blue until about the 1980s. Willie Brown, like the rest of like Nancy Pelosi and others, and Dianne Feinstein and the rest of those chumps, they were active and involved in California politics back when California was Ronald Reagan country. Keep in mind that California made Ronald Reagan governor only 8 years before Jerry Brown got his first try. Never forget that. See, you might be thinking that these guys, that these white supremacists on the left and the right are at each other's throats, but they understand that they're basically both competing against you and me. They understand who their enemy is. They understand who it is that they're actually fighting against. The question is, do you?